Hey everyone, welcome to another Sounds Profitable product deep dive. I'm very excited to introduce you, my friend, and a great partner of Sounds Profitable, Sean Howard, CEO of Flightpath. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bryan.
So, Sean, we're going to talk about Flightpath. We've been, me and you have been collaborating for easily over a year on this. I love the idea, but this is really an opportunity for you to show Flightpath to the whole Sounds Profitable audience and, all of the podcasting ecosystem. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Flightpath and what you created it for?
Sure. Flightpath began as a personal project. I have a small network, an ad-based network, and I was also a buyer in the space. And I was just getting increasingly frustrated, both as a buyer, right, just trying to spend money in the space, but also as a publisher, trying to manage and scale my business. And there were no cohesive tools. I think at that time, still now, I think we could say, well, I don't know if this is true anymore. I'd say now we can say pretty reliably that the world of building and scaling a podcast ad network or publisher of any kind and being on one DAI platform is over, right? But I think a year ago when you and I were talking, we were basically saying it's going to be over. And I think it is, right? Like if you look, even though I'd say most networks have one primary podcast host, they're now realizing that they're sitting on crazy unsold inventory. So they're starting to be with every SSP they can basically find, right? Or we're in a world now where it's no longer one platform. And there aren't a lot of tools to manage your business on one platform, let alone multiple.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, as someone who's helped build out a technology in the space on the, the ad serving side of it, I think that podcasting built a lot of this stuff in silo without experience and insight from the greater advertising or, marketing ecosystem, which is definitely kind of frustrating. And we had the opportunity to build towards things that generated revenue or build towards things that put the power and the tools in the people's hands who can in the future generate revenue, right? It's the whole give a fish versus teach how to fish type thing. And I think we prioritize generating more revenue faster. I think we built all the features that put money in people's pockets on both sides, but we didn't build those tools out. And so what excites me about this is what you're talking about is a command center for a network, not just the publishing aspect and distributing it as a hosting platform, but being able to eventually serve ads everywhere and manage your inventory everywhere from one central location.
And I should say that the job of Flightpath is to allow each of your hosting partner platforms to do what they do best, right? So we don't serve the ads, but we basically we do everything in and around that, from the insights, the inventory prediction, the performance prediction, but also managing creative and workflow, all that stuff, right? Through all the way approvals, all the way to the host, or whatever host, right, is selected. But the idea is, right now, I think every company is seeing challenges with how to scale their business, even if they're starting on one host, and you start adding in other hosts, it only gets significantly worse. So So that was basically the start of it. And it was just for me. And I will say, I got to give credit here to Bryan. I was just building this for me in my basement. And one day Bryan saw it. He's like, "Are you insane?" Which sort of started our journey. So
because it's a great product. I mean, the hosting platforms have built some of these tools, but the granularity in which you're looking for and the ability to cohesively do those actions across multiple hosting platforms, that's new, right? So we're talking about a front end that uses the APIs and data exports from hosting platforms. You're currently integrated with Megaphone, and I understand you're planning on integrating with other platforms here.
Yes, we are.
And you're utilizing all of the features that they're building their platform on, but you're evaluating which ones work best for each publisher and which ones work best as a unified solution to empower those publishers.
Yeah, and just giving the tools for the teams, right, to realize what works best where. I think the biggest change that we've set out to do at Flightpath, we have alerts and all these tools designed for operations because we come from that space, right?
Yeah.
We have a very small team with one of the lowest make goods in the industry, and I think it's because we've automated a lot of these tools. But I think, when I look at the challenges of the mindset shift, that's something that I'm just starting to get my head wrapped around. Our team started working with Flightpath a year ago, so we're used to thinking about projected performance not actuals. But if you're a large publisher, you're living in Excel hell, and you have an ad ops team that lives in actuals and is constantly scrambling to try and see, what's in trouble. So they're only looking at the things that are nearing the end of their runs where it's too late to do anything. And the whole system's built around that. So Flightpath is really not just the technology, but now more and more sort of the workflow and the assistance to try and get teams to think about what would happen if they could operate off projected and not actuals.
I love that, because I think operations teams are the ones that are probably the least staffed, and it's also the hardest to hire up and train, right? The period of time to hire a salesperson is probably way faster than it is to hire an operations person, especially in podcasting, where our tools aren't necessarily transferable between podcasting and other industries. So, let's dive into the dashboard here. I'm really excited to walk through this. It's had a lot of improvements since I last saw it.
Well, thank you. So this is basically the adops dashboard. So this is going to give us things like visibility into all the different streams of whatever. So this could be, this is like backfill. This could be different SSPs, and then your main direct sold impressions. So it's just a high level view in real time. We do things like financial projections more and more now. That's coming, I don't think I saw that need initially, but I'm going to show you where we work with predicting the projected performance across platforms of an order. And so a number of our clients now, finance teams, have requested the ability to do future month-by-month projections based on projected delivery, because more and more of us are operating in a bill as delivered world.
Yeah.
So we're doing more and more of that. But here, what you're going to see is sort of what we call the triage. So this is a list of all the orders that aren't going to run, the most current. So here we have this team has 3 orders that are supposed to go live today that haven't. So those have been alerted to them in the dashboard, Slack, whatever channels they've turned on. And then after that, they've got whatever orders are next in line. So this is just meant to be like, what's going on, what's in trouble. Overall, here on the right, I can see most of the current what's flighted is looking good, projected, not actuals. And I should, when I say projected, that's actuals to date plus projected performance into the future. And then, we got a small number that needs help. And then we have 15% that just says nope. There's my sense of humor for you.
But that's good. And what I like about that dashboard is all those are hyperlinks in the triage area, which is really attractive, because a dashboard needs to be a command center. It needs for you to be able to eyeball something, see what's in trouble, see if things are going well, and then action on it. And the fact that all of this looks clickable to bring me into an area of the nope or into the specific order and dig into that, that makes a big difference.
Well, also, I don't know if one of the hosts we support is Megaphone, and the ability to quick link into orders in Megaphone has been one of our clients has basically believes it's saving their team over 2 to 3 hours a week just finding orders in the DAI.
That's
so
fantastic.
A lot of our stuff is hot linked right into the source, whatever platform that is. But yeah, let me take you into traffic. Traffic's sort of like the center of the system. This is everything currently flighted for this network, and I can quickly narrow it down. Like in this case, my top show unwell, but just starting to type unwell. And so this is an example of the current status of everything and what it's projected to deliver. So this is our biggest show. It's doing pretty well, but this is day 1 of this flight. And so we only have 2,000 actuals. So any team in the world right now operating out of Excel is going to look at this and go, right, if they don't have Flightpath, they're like, oh, it's delivered 2,000, it's 82,000, it's our biggest show, it's fine. But no, I don't know if it's going to be fine. It's going to come in a little short. So this is currently what's being projected in the black line, and we only have one data point, which is 2,000 impressions so far today. Precog, our engine, is predicting it's going to obviously have a drop on Wednesday, it looks like. But even with that, we don't believe it's going to hit 100% of what's been sold.
Yeah. How quickly do you have this type of data? Today is the 27th, as you're showing on there, 2,000 out of, 80,000 total impressions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very small number. And that bump, I think you explained this earlier before we started this, that would be related to like an episode drop.
Yeah,
right?
There's an episode releasing on Wednesday, it looks like.
So this takes into account the priority of the ad versus other ads, the availability of total downloads, any of the targeting. And this says that quickly.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
And it'll also show you a list of the orders that are competing with it. Because oftentimes, if you need to fix this order, you don't need to do anything to this order. It's probably already as high as you can put in the system. But maybe you need to slow down something else. But But the key here is the team has a whole run. I mean, we have 2 weeks to figure this out. They might go, I'll let it ride a little, right? It's 90%, 87%, but they can also potentially, consider maybe asking for an extension of 1 day now. I don't know, you've been in the world. Asking for extensions is brutal, and it takes days. And then, so being able to ask for a 1 day extension now is a lot easier. So,
and I agree with that. And I think this is really smart. I think that we are living in a reactionary world in podcast advertising. So the idea that you can see this, the prediction, and even if somebody thinks that it's over exaggerating, which I know you guys have spent a lot of time on.
I'll show you that.
Yeah.
I'll show you that.
That's so attractive to be able to start that conversation early, to look at the competitive campaigns, because you're right. Very often, if a campaign is a top priority and it's under delivering, there's nothing else you can do. The targeting is too severe and it's just not available in that show, or there's other ads that have been set at the top priority and you have to have an internal team meeting. But knowing about that on day 1 of 12 is way better than knowing about that on day 8 or 10 of 12.
Yeah. And Flightpath is what's coming in Flightpath is it will actually make recommends to you. It'll say, hey, you can change this other order and still not impact it. So you can move this order down in priority and it will still deliver. So those are things that are hard to know, right? It's just us eyeballing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull up Midnight Burger here just as another example.
Fantastic show, by the way.
Thanks. I think you recommended them to us. So this is an example of what we predicted would happen, and then the blue is actuals, what did happen. So you can sort of get an example of, you can see how we're doing just in projection. And I don't think there's any competition on that order. But so that's the whole idea of this is on day 1, Precog's going to give you a sense, and every day, right, it's constantly reviewing. But the idea is that you don't have to wait, right? You don't have to wait till you're halfway through or the end of a campaign to know. And I think we're the only people in the industry that do what I'm about to show you. This is basically actuals versus prediction over time. So all of our clients have access to how is our precog working. So when we first start working with a client, it'll generally be a wider spread, and then it narrows it down as it learns. But we're basically constantly, our data science team's constantly working on this, but we want to be clear. We want the team to have confidence, right? So the team knowing, right, how well we are, is just important, right? If we're commonly a little over, they know that. But normally we're a little conservative is what we try to be.
I think this is really impressive, and I think that it shows how quickly it adapts to it.
Getting there. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, a long time, but yeah, thank you. So I think that's like most of like there's a lot of tools we have, our alert system and producers and we'll go over some of that stuff in the future. But I think what I wanted to share today was to talk about sales availability. So when we were talking about precog, right? Precog's taking into account expected performance, right? But also, like you were saying, all the other orders that are competing with every other order. So we're looking at frequency capping in US, geo, US, or whatever country locking. And so what started to emerge for me in the industry was that the number one problem that I see for most networks is that they have a real problem in the quote to cash pipeline. So the amount of time it takes for someone interested to actually get avails, get that approval, which we always know is last minute, right? Then deal with the fact that the avails are no longer available, right? Then close that deal, flight that deal, get the deal to completion without make goods, right? Or where we can bill for it at the end. And then hopefully get paid shorter than 120 days or whatever the horror is, right? That's the current. But the quote to cash pipeline is really important for scaling our business. And there are not a lot of great tools for getting availability quickly. And then modifying that availability, and certainly none that will work across any platform that you're on, right? And of course, we don't have all platforms right now, but we're working towards it. So we just launched this. So I'll just for everyone, this is pre-launch. This is pre 1.0. We're demoing this last week in New York. So this is what we're calling our avails builder. So this would be a section where sales can log into, potentially your adops team can come in, and you can actually pull avails. And the goal was to be able to pull avails. Right now it's 6 months in the future. Our goal is to go up to a year in the future that are entirely based on all the factors that we're doing everywhere else. Full prediction of all flights in the system. We know all the competition, etc. So I'm gonna do something that is basically impossible, right? In most, I want to know a pre-roll avails for the next 2 months. I'm not shocked. Let's just do country. And sorry, the interface is still pre-release, but
I think it's great for pre-release, and thank you for sharing it with us. I think that's really important.
So I'm not going to select a show because there are avail systems out there where you got to pick a show, pick an insertion point, and then it comes back and doesn't have the avails you want. So then you got to pick the show again, pick a different insertion point, a different geo, hit run, wait for a few seconds, and just keep doing that. And most sales teams, in my experience, they're out, they're done, right? So I'm just going to do this on all shows in my network for US for 2 months by week, and it's up, it's there. So I now have avails that I can walk through. I'm not going to do this right now because it's a lot, but basically these are avails by week. So the week of March 6th for US only, I have 5,974 I can still sell. Only 137 this week. And look, I got 0 this week. So the system's showing me what I can sell. The system is designed to only show you what you can sell without upsetting the apple cart, right? So everything that's in the system or held is going to be part of this.
Well, go into held for a bit there, because I mean, a lot of platforms in podcast advertising are focused around what's already booked, right? So something that's sold, they have the rights to set it up, they're flighting it correctly. It might be missing the creative, but like there's a contract already signed. So held is really important to me, but what made you dig into it, and what does held mean in your platform?
Yeah. So we have a few different states that we're supporting. I'm just pulling up a different one just so we can have it up here where you can see everything. So we have a few different states in our system. So we're going to support save, save and export, which is basically going to give you. I'll show you how you can specify the orders you want, come up with the number you want to send back to the client, and quickly do a save and export. And what it's going to do is it's going to store that in our system. It's going to give you that as a CSV, so you can throw that into a Google Sheet, and within 5 minutes of a call, you could basically have avails back going, hey, I have avails. Do you want me to do a brand check? Do you want me to do PE and brand check? Right? And I can tell you right now as a buyer, I once was trying to spend $200. It's happened all the time. Once I'm trying to spend money, and I will literally have people come back to me 5 weeks later, and I'm like, that money's gone. Right? Like, but these people have to go, and they have to do the brand shift. They do this. They have to go to adops, and the magic person who has the Excel sheet somewhere that's trying to figure it all out, and it just takes forever. So the save and whatever is just designed to give your sales team a tool to quickly do avail checks. So what you know at that point is you have the avails if the client moves now, but we need to write a PE or whatever check. Save and hold is the other feature. So save and hold says, hey, this client is a good buyer. They're always good for this. I want to put a hold in the system. So I want to find because they've given me everything I need. So I can save that in as a hold in the system. And a hold means that Precog, our engine, is now going to take it into account. So anybody else coming in to buy for these 2 shows over this period will no longer, that inventory will be gone from their view.
And is it based on all of the targeting? Like, so if I set the geo restrictions and the frequency cap, 100%. So it takes into account all of that as I hold it. Cool. So
right now, let's just, as an example, let's just choose, we can choose US here, right? So we're sitting at 34,000 on our first week there. And if I just run US, right, we're going to get a little bit less, right? If this show still has really strong US. And if I do frequency capping, it's going to go down further, right? Depending on my release weeks, et cetera. So yeah, the idea is that it will hold all those values in the system. But the problem with hold systems, and you're probably aware of this having you come from the space, is nobody releases their damn holds. Can I swear on this show? Okay.
I think so. It's your video.
So if we step back and we look at our system, Flightpath, with all those alerts that are built into it, that whole engine of notifying adops and sales, it's really important. So our system is built to flag holds that are coming up within a window of time the client can set that have not been released, stuff like that. So But to answer your question, I think, and then the last is to place an order. Right now, we don't place those orders directly, but that's something we're looking at. Right now, we carry everything. We carry a bunch of things through all the way to the DAI. The challenge with placing an order in a system like this is we need to sometimes take it back to the Salesforce automation platform, like Booster, that we support. So, but yeah, the goal of this system,
integrated with Booster.
We do. We integrate with Booster as a source of what is sold. So that's been really helpful for things like when what was sold doesn't match what was flighted. And it happens more often, right, than all of us like to admit. I think the most common thing in the world is I as a buyer, I always wanted a pixel, and I almost never got a pixel, right? No matter how many times I asked. So, and it's not because anybody didn't want to give me the pixel. It's just the breakdown between that crazy long process, all the hands-offs, and sales and adops being, right, two different groups. So
yeah. But that's mentioning Booster and mentioning all the platforms you're aiming to integrate with, and how not only can you push some things and pull some things from the platform, but you also directly link into there is really attractive, because I think a lot of people have the tools they want to use. They want to use Booster, they want to use Salesforce or whatnot. They want to use Megaphone, they want to use Triton, all these other platforms here. Being able to identify where you have to allow them to kick over to there and where you can automate it means that this is versatile for everything. Because if right now in my flow, I do need it kicked over to Booster and then the campaign built in Booster and pushed over into Megaphone, the second that process is done, it's then reflected in Precog, because Precog is pulling my Megaphone instance and showing all of that in there. So that central point that you're building here doesn't step on the toes of something like Booster. In my opinion, it doesn't step on the toes of something like Megaphone. It creates the ability for finally a publisher to have a full adops and operations tool.
Yeah, we made when I first started building Flightpath, I thought it would be, we would put everything into Flightpath and it would automate everything. And there's a lot of fragility that comes from that, right? Like if Megaphone adds a new feature or whatever. But there's also a lot of people using these tools a little differently. So we just call it DAI, or platform first, meaning we get everything from Megaphone, right? And same with Booster. So if somebody updates or changes their Booster configuration, it's no real general impact to us. We do take some things straight through, like our creative workflow will take things right to the host at the end if it's approved by the client. But yeah.
Well, what I like about this Avails builder right now is the fact that, if the advertiser comes and says, I want to buy this amount of inventory, and you say, yeah, and you hold that inventory for them, or you save it to start and you move towards hold. And then they say, well, actually, we just like it US. Well, then you can adjust. Do I still have enough inventory for it? And then finally they say, well, we actually really want a frequency cap once per day. And then you
once per 7 days is the average now. It's crazy.
That is a very restrictive number. So, I mean, if that's the case with all of that, your seller, your sales support team is going to see that real quickly when they make that adjustment and realize that they can't fill that. And when that campaign, if they decide to override it, it immediately is going to flag in the system, right?
Yeah. So I can't show it to you right now in this beta, but basically once you've saved it, what really always happens, let's say they don't change anything. What generally is, they generally will, to your point. But even if they don't, they're not going to prove it until like the last minute. And so just loading it back up, the system's going to tell you we got a problem, right? Like we don't have these avails anymore. But to your point, like let's say this client wants, I don't know. I'm going to, let's extend this. I'll go longer. I should have done a longer date time. Let's just open this up a little. So I'm going to go for a few more weeks. I'll just do the one show, just get it up here fast. And let's say pre's, and I think we had US. Okay, so I've got this by week, and let's say, the client wants 50,000 impressions. Yeah, I can see pretty easily how, and on any week here, I could be like, right, I could easily do that. And I'll show you how the order thing builds. By the way, I want to call out this is an order placement. It's designed for like a sales team. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the avails systems return a number that's the sum of all the insertion points, like all the pre-rolls. And if you sell that, you're screwed. But let's just put on a frequency.
Well, so you're saying here that this is like a mock campaign in the sense that it's going to realize that it's only one impression per download.
So here you'll notice my numbers are a lot lower, but I said 50,000, so that's going to really extend this. So I'm going to say, let's just say like 20,000. Let's say they wanted 20,000. What it's going to do is it's going to build that as an order, and this is for you. And it's going to say, I can see here that's a 3-week span. So it's basically saying you need 3 weeks now for what you could have done in 1 week. And so that's basically how the system. And then I could try and sell another one here, but I know the client doesn't like back to back. So it sort of starts help you seeing what happens with frequency capping. We know this client likes 2-week gaps between runs. So now I'm out here, right? And I'm like, can I fit another 30? And when I hit add, right, it's going to attempt to build that. And so I'm at the end of my week. So if this was their window of time that they want to run in with this frequency capping with the 2-week gap, I can basically sell them 30,000 runs, right?
There you go.
So that's basically how it's designed, is to help you figure that out and be able to quickly then save it. And when you load it now a week before, it might be like, hey, I don't have that anymore.
Over my 13-year career in ad tech, I'm still somehow assigned and associated with Excel documents from people at previous companies for things like this, because and you can't break it down like that. You can't easily filter by US. You can't easily frequency cap. You can't take into account per ad slot unless you're building something completely unique, which this solves. And this is a layer on top of your platform.
You called this out before our call. Some people will notice the number is pretty consistent, except for you'll notice on the 13th and the 27th, my number is a little higher, right? And that's because frequency caps are really impacted by basically what's in run of catalog versus what's in an episode release week, right? So the system knowing those episode release weeks helps us see we can get a little bit more juice on those weeks from with this crazy of a frequency cap.
I love this. I think that this is really powerful. And like you said, quote to cash, this helps a lot there because we need to be able to action on that as quickly as possible and then move it over into held, into booked, and all of that.
As a buyer in the space, if people would just have gotten back to me same day or next day, I would have held money. I would have been like, cool, love this show. I'll start the rest of the process up. But the problem is, as a buyer, if it takes days or weeks, it's gone. Our budget's spent. We're out there calling everyone, right? All the shows we love. And yeah.
You're not just casually sitting on the cash waiting for it. You have a goal.
No. Yeah. And once that money's allocated in your Excel spreadsheet on that side, that's it, right? So you gotta be fast in returning those requests.
So what are the other areas that you want to walk us through? We kind of jumped over the triage aspect a little bit there, and I'd love to see a little bit more of that. And then the real-time performance aspect of this. I mean, you made it a big point that everything you're pulling in here is updating as frequently as possible. And many of the hosting platforms that we work with today, that data is there, but it's not necessarily as granular, and it's not as easily pivotable.
Yeah. So I'd say there's a few different places that we're working in. And again, I'll go through our creative workflow on another one. But I think the ability to see in real time, this is always up to it's within a few minutes, it's always up to date of what the current state of the world is. So that's sort of the lifeblood of Flightpath. Flightpath is, and that's where I was showing you, we are constantly looking at our accuracy, and because we're doing the impossible, we're predicting the future, and we're doing it third party. We are not first party here data. So Flightpath is like we are a data science team for our clients. We just have a platform that helps us.
Are you finding that the longer that you're running precog, that you're learning more from like cyclical nature of things?
Yeah, a lot of what we're doing now is in the weeds of the 1%, right? So early on, we attacked the problems that were really the big drivers in predicting the future, and now we're into the more seasonality, dealing with shows that won't do drafts or put in their releases early. So we're dealing with all the smaller things that still have impact.
And of course, seasonality and different
seasonality,
things like that.
Listening patterns. One of the things that we're trying to do right now, that we have a couple ideas, but we're trying to figure out what's a rerun or a feed drop, because they don't perform as well, right? They might be a 25, even 50% drop in normal traffic. So those things can have a big impact when we're predicting how an order will run. But I think the best response so far was, and we also have a lot of custom reporting and things that we do for clients even now out the gate. So we have dashboards and things, but a lot of clients are like, I could really use this. And so we get that set up, delivers every Monday or whatever for them. But our data science team often gets involved, right? And so one of the largest publishers, I think, I'm not gonna say their name, but I think they're probably the largest publisher in podcasting and also outside of podcasting. And their CRO said that they have one of the best data science teams in the industry, and they get detailed reports every month with real avails and missed opportunities for last month.
Wow.
And which is great, but it's unactionable. It's always for last month. Right? It's like, here's all the stuff you missed out on last month. And so the idea with Flightpath is, can we give those to you for today? Like, I showed you a flight that launched today on our biggest show, and it's showing it's going to need a little help. And are there other places where this technology can give it to us this week, stuff we can action now?
Yeah. And again, I think that we are so behind on how we get that data that even if you're a little bit early, even if it just teaches you to keep your eye on it and you don't action on it, that's still better than being in the dark until 15 days after the month ends.
Yeah. Yeah, the financial projection stuff is something I didn't foresee, but it's been really fun to play with now. So I'll show it to you next time, but our new campaign interface basically is doing projection-based financials based on bill as delivered, which makes total sense, right? It's the same thing we're doing with delivery now, and we're summing it up for avails in real time, but now we're just applying a lens of, right, the CPM costs.
Yeah. Well, Sean, all of this is really fantastic, and I really enjoy the platform. I love your idea of building this as a layer on top of things and connecting with other different platforms. You are focused on expanding this past Megaphone, right? And that's the projections for this year?
Yep. So we're in talks with a couple other hosts. Had a really great meeting last week. So our hope is to add other platforms. We have our eye right now on adding in some SSP with some automation that doesn't really exist out there to the producer level, which I think could really help, because everyone now, I think, is trying to figure out what to do with this 40% unsold inventory.
Yeah, and being able to see how much unsold inventory you have and see how you're selling versus what your inventory available is left, that's really eye-opening, right? Like the ability to identify that maybe the patterns and the ways that you're willing to accept deals is leaving money on the table, or maybe you need a new product or offering specifically for that unsold is really powerful.
I think that for people that are in the C-suite chairs, I think it's a real eye-opening moment when they find out that their organization is right now managing prediction of availability with the goal of leaving unsold inventory on the table. Because they have to play it safe, because now with all the frequency capping and the geo, nobody wants to be in the place where they're in cascading make goods. We've all been there. And so the goals of the organization have evolved to basically leave money on the table on the top shows, right? The ones that are in most demand.
And your goal with Flightpath really is to straddle that line between no make goods and no under delivery, like or no unsold inventory.
Our goal is to find at least 5 points on the top money-making shows on a network of unsold inventory. Yeah.
Well, this is really great. You're going to be back for 3 more videos this year, and I'm really excited to dig into more features here. This is a brand new product. We're a little over a year into its development and growing, and we'll have more information for you to find out more about Flightpath, but I highly recommend reaching out to them, talking through, and getting a direct demo, because Sean and team are really skilled at making sure you understand how this applies to you. And again, their goal is to help you earn more money. So that's really important here for everybody, especially this year. Thanks, Sean, for joining us.
Thanks so much, Brian.